All right. Good morning, all of you. I hope you are able to hear me. If yes, please press yes. All right. So I think the audio is fine. And if you're able to view screen also, you can press yes. All right. So I think we are good to start. Yes. So yeah, you can look at it. We'll come back to it later, most likely at the end of the class, right? So yes. Now, let us discuss about few things which we have studied in last class. There has been a gap of 2 classes, I guess. So let us quickly recall what we have studied in last class, then we'll move towards the next class, right? So basically last class we were discussing about the associate colloids, correct? We had seen how to represent a soap, right? We were discussing about mechanism of soap formation or mechanism of micelle formation, right? How does it work? So we defined the soap as the sodium and potassium salt of long chain fatty acids, right? And the general formula was given by RCO minus Na plus, right? Example was sodium stearate, which contains total 18 carbons, correct? Which can also be written as C17H35CuNa, right? And it is the major component of soaps, bar soaps, correct? So this is how you define soap. Then you said properties of soap. When you dissolve a soap in water, it acts as an electrolyte. It gets dissociated into its ions. It acts as an electrolyte. So it dissociates into its ions, that is RCO minus and Na plus. Right? RCO minus itself consists of 2 parts. What were those 2 parts? Non-polar hydrophobic part and polar hydrophilic part. Correct? So non-polar hydrophobic part was your hydrocarbon chain, R, basically R. RCO minus में R was known as your tail, whereas CO minus was known as your head, correct? So this is how we represented it. We said there is a long chain of hydrocarbon, you named it as R, and this was named it as CO minus Na plus. This was your soap, correct? So in this also you said RCO minus contains R, which is hydrophobic, right? And CO minus is hydrophilic, correct? And hydrophilic is the head part of the soap, and this hydrophobic part is your tail part. This is what you studied, correct? Now let us quickly see this in the form of the head tail form. So there is a tail part, there is a head part. CO minus forms the head of the soap, and the long chain forms the R part, that is hydrophobic or non-polar part, correct? Now, this we have discussed. Tail is non-polar. Non-polar means it does not like water. It is hydrophobic. It tries to repel water, right? So it is water repellent. But what does it like? It likes your oil, dirt on clothes, daag basically in Hindi, right? So it likes oil, dirt, all these things it likes. Okay, tail part. Now coming to the head part likes, it's a polar in nature. It is hydrophilic, it is water loving, it likes water, right? So it is water soluble. So therefore, whenever you add it in water, whenever you add your soap in water, we had defined 2 things, Kraft temperature and critical micelle concentration. If you remember, can you define Kraft temperature? Any one of you who can define Kraft temperature? Yes. So we had discussed 2 things. One was CMC, critical micelle concentration, and one was Kraft temperature. So what was Kraft temperature? So the Kraft temperature was the temperature, very good. The Kraft temperature was the temperature above which micelle formation takes place. What was CMC? What was CMC, critical micelle concentration? It was the, what was CMC? It was the concentration or the amount of soap above which the soap formation takes place or micelle formation takes place. Correct? So very good to see that all of you remember this. Very good. Correct. So this is how you define. So before CMC, your soap molecules gets oriented like this. They act as surfactant. I told you, right? They act as surfactant. They decrease the surface tension of water. We had seen the graph also. Surface tension keeps decreasing till CMC. After CMC, it becomes constant. We had seen this graph also, right? So below CMC, they exist like this. So hydrophilic polar part towards water and hydrophobic non-polar parts away from water, right? Not inside the water. But when you increase the concentration of soap, this soap has to move inside. Okay? So when you increase the concentration of soap, they come inside and the hydrophilic part, CO minus head, orient towards water. This is your water. So this is hydrophilic part is moving towards water. Hydrophobic part is moving away from water, right? So they arrange themselves like this. And this takes place at a particular concentration of soap, which was known as critical micelle concentration. So for micelle to form, minimum amount of soap is required, which is known as critical micelle concentration, right? So anions are aggregated to form a spherical shape with their hydrophobic or hydrocarbon chains pointing towards the center of the sphere, with CO minus remaining outward on the surface of the sphere, right? So this is how you define. CO minus was outside. Why it was outside? Why it was outside? Because it was hydrophilic. This is just like for the people who are biology students. For them, it will be easier to recall because the plasma membrane structure is similar to this, right? Lipophilic and lipophobic, right? So that types. So this is how it is, correct? So any doubt till here, anyone? Why do micelles form spherical shape? Right, very good. So see, you must have observed it's a surface energy, surface tension related to it, right? So you see this graph where micelle formation takes place at minimum surface tension, right? So minimum surface tension or minimum surface energy is attained when this shape is spherical in nature, because the surface area will be minimum, right? So for a given amount of volume, sphere has the minimum surface area. So your surface tension will be minimized at this particular point, right? So to minimize the surface tension, who was this? Aishwarya. To minimize the surface tension, the micelle formation takes place in the shape of a sphere. Is that clear, Aishwarya? Chemical reaction of soap is important. Yes, it is important. Chemical reaction of soap means which reaction you are talking about, Athar? Formation of soap, saponification, it will come in some other chapter, not in this chapter. Yes, same reason, Pritesh. That's what. To minimize the surface tension, the micelle formation takes place in the form of a sphere. So saponification is not a part of this chapter, Athar. It's a part of last chapter, Chemistry in Every Life. Will it always be in sphere? Yes, Sakshi, it should be in sphere. Right? So I hope this arrangement is above CMC. It is clear to all of you. Now we also saw the graph that after CMC, the solution becomes opaque. Before that, it was clear. You must have seen when you add detergents or soaps in water, initially water is clear. After some time, water becomes milky white. So that happens after CMC when micelles are formed, correct? We had solved a question on this. We had seen the graph of conductance also. So before CMC, it acts as electrolyte. So as soon as micelles start forming, the conductance decreases, right? Now, because there were free ions initially, after CMC, ions are not free. So therefore, conductance decreases abruptly, right? So that's what it is. So with the increase in concentration of solution, conductance decreases. This is also one of the graph from electrochemistry you have seen. From electrochemistry you have seen lambda C versus root C graph comes like this for strong electrolyte, right? With increase in concentration, conductance decreases, right? Right. Yeah. So that's what we had discussed. Let's move to today's class. Today we are going to see how this all helps in cleaning of your clothes, cleansing action of soap. We'll discuss that. Then we'll start the preparation of colloids, right? I hope it is clear. Now let me give you a recall test on the last class. No, there is no recall test on the last class. Let us start the cleansing of action of soap. Craft temperature and CMC are constant for a type of soap, or they will change. It is constant for a given type of soap. For the given, I think you remember, I told you also, right? I think in this question I had told you, more longer is your hydrophobic part, the easier it is to form the micelle. If your long chain of hydrophobic, if your hydrophobic chain is very long, then it is easier for the soap to form micelle, correct? So that's why our answer here was what? D, right? So Adesh, it answers your doubt that at what concentration micelle formation takes place depends upon your type of soap. I think here you can see this question clearly, Adesh. Lowest molar concentration at which the micelle formation take place. That means which has the lowest CMC. So it depends upon the structure of the soap. Is that clear, Adesh? It depends upon the structure of the soap. Longer the hydrophobic part, I repeat, longer the hydrophobic part, better the soap is. You can write it. I think I have written it here already. While explaining this question, I had written it, that longer tail means better soap, right? All right. So let's move to cleansing action of soap. I know you all have studied this in your class 10th also, but still it's better to know a few things new. Right. So cleansing action of soap. How does the cleansing action take place? Right. So see carefully, all of you know this. There is a hydrophilic part, there is a hydrophobic part. Cleansing action of soap is due to micelle formation around grease or oil droplet or any dirt, right? In such a way that hydrophobic part, that is stearate ions, in the oil, and hydrophilic part projects outside the oil. I'll show it to you in the form of a diagram. Okay? Let us say this is your oil or dirt or grease on your cloth, right? This is your dirty cloth. Let's say, assume you have played a football match in a muddy ground. You dived for 2-3 times and you got a very dirty patches on your clothes. So this is your dirt. So what happens is the hydrophobic part of the soap, right, gets attracted towards your dirt. Get attracted towards your dirt. So this is your hydrophobic part. It gets attracted towards your dirt. Whereas the hydrophilic head is pointed outwards towards water, because outside you will have water. Outside there will be a lot of water molecules. Correct? So when they do it, see carefully. This is continuously done and you got a micelle. You got a micelle. So here you have water. Here you have water all around. Here you have water all around. And what is present in the middle? What is present in the middle now? Your dirt or grease. Hydrophobic part is towards your dirt. So your dirt is enclosed by the micelle. Your dirt will be enclosed by the micelle, right? So it's fine that dirt has been entrapped in the micelle. Now how to remove it? How to remove it? So when you rinse your clothes, all these micelles will fall down from your clothes, right? So when you start rinsing your clothes, these micelles fall down from your cloth, and when they fall down from your cloth, they will bring all the dirt along with them. They will bring all the dirt along with them. That's why you must have observed, if you have washed ever your clothes, if you have ever washed your clothes, when you rinse your clothes, you'll see dirt coming out of your clothes. So like water will not be clean, it will be muddy. So when you rinse it, why it becomes dirty? Why dirty water comes out? So who is bringing the dirtiness out of your clothes? Micelles. So it is micelles which fall off from your clothes when you rinse your clothes. Is that clear, everyone? So basically, let me summarize. There is a dirt, hydrophobic part of the soap comes around the dirt. Hydrophilic part remains outside towards water. So all the micelles are formed. So dirt is enclosed by the micelles, right? So your dirt is enclosed by the micelles. So there is a dirt, head is outside. So when you rinse your clothes, these micelles will fall off from your clothes, bringing out the dirt, right? Same mechanism for detergent also. No change. Correct? You can see one of the diagram here. It is very clearly shown here. See here. So I hope it is visible. Yes, it is visible. Soap or detergent dissolves in water. Because why they dissolve in water? Why soap and detergent dissolve in water? Anybody? Why soap or detergent dissolves in water? Why soap or detergent dissolves in water? Polar. Actually, polar, you can better say they are electrolytes. They contain Na plus ion and RCO minus ion. So they are electrolyte. They can dissociate into its ions. Therefore, they are soluble in water. You should not. Acha. Okay, that's fine. I hope it is clear, right? So they are electrolytes. They will dissociate into its ions. So they are soluble in water. Soaps and detergent dissolves in water. So this is your grease. And for your information, let me tell you, your grease and your dirt, most of them are non-polar. Most of them are non-polar. So when your soap is fed into the water, your hydrophobic part, see here, hydrophobic part gets oriented towards your grease, because this is also non-polar grease, and your tail of soap is also what? Tail of soap is also non-polar. Your tail of soap is also non-polar. Difference between detergent and soap is one is biodegradable, other is not biodegradable. Right? Soaps are biodegradable, detergents are not. That is the major difference. Rest everything remains same. The function, mechanism, everything remains same. But detergents have better property than your soaps. Right? They have more tendency to decrease the surface tension. They are better cleansing agents than your soaps. Right? That is another advantage. Right? CMC values are low, and they can even be used in your hard water. You can use them even in hard water. So that is the difference between them. Okay? So this soap and detergent part will come in the last chapter, chemistry in real life again. So right now I'm discussing only the cleansing action of soap. Detergents I'm not touching because of that reason, because it will again come in your cationic detergent, anionic detergents. All those things will come in your chemistry in real life. Right? That you should check with everyone, Rohit. Right. So now you can see hydrophobic part is oriented towards your grease, because this is also hydrophobic chain, and your grease is also non-polar. Your tail is also non-polar. I hope it is clear. Tail is non-polar and grease is also non-polar. Now see carefully you see how the hydrophobic part is pulling out the grease from your surface of water, surface of cloth, right? So after some times you will observe the grease is removed from the surface of the cloth. And why it is being removed? Because this hydrophobic part is pulling it up. So this, now one more thing you should observe here. How many molecules are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So as you are increasing the amount of the soap, what is happening? The tendency to pull out the grease increases. Why? Why? Because now the hydrophobic part is more in the soap. Now the hydrophobic part or non-polar part is more in the soap. So it will attract grease more. It will attract grease more. Correct? So now grease will start moving towards hydrophobic part, because there is a lot of non-polar part now. Right? So after some time, this will be removed in the form of micelles. You can see grease has been entrapped in the micelles. Grease has been entrapped in the micelles. So that means tail is more useful than head. Both are useful. If the head was not there, Sakshi, if the head was not there, soap will not go into water only. Sakshi, if the head was not there, how will soap go into water? You cannot dissolve your soap in water. Correct? So this is the previous slide. Because this is the head which makes your soap enter the, right? Enter the water, hydrophilic part. I hope, Sakshi, that is clear. Micelles are formed only after they get in contact with dirt. Yes, you can say that. Right? You can say that. So now you can see there are a lot of micelles. They contain dirt. rinse your clothes, your missiles will fall from your clothes will be clean, right? Your clothes will be clean. While pulling, will the grease break? Yes, they can. Gagan, definitely you can see, right? The big grease has been broken into small pieces. Correct? So now, is there any doubt in this mechanism of cleansing action of soap? Anyone? Is there any doubt in the cleansing action of soap? Anyone? Very good. Right, let's move ahead to a question you can see here. A missile formed during cleansing action of soap is. A missile formed during cleansing action of soap is. Let me give you the options. Let me give you the options. Just, yes, you can see your options now. More the more grease will attract. More the soap, more the grease will be attracted. Yes, Sakshi, you are right. You are right, Sakshi. Surfactant ions. Yes, they are surfactant ions. I have already explained, Athar. Athar, I have already said this and explained this, why they so act as surfactant. They decrease the surface tension because they remain at the surface, right? Below CMC condition, you remember? I have already explained how they act as surfactants. They activate your surface because they decrease the surface tension. Does missile formation takes place when instead in the place of grease water is present and instead of water oil is present? It can take place. Ashutosh, it can take place. Ashutosh is a very good question here. All of you should hear it. I'll tell you the term related to it. Does the missile formation takes place when instead in the place of grease water is present and in the place of water oil is present? So yes, then also missile formation will take place in the reverse direction. That is called reverse RMC, reverse missile formation. That is called RMC, reverse missile formation. Ashutosh, you can go and Google on YouTube. There is a lot of videos regarding it. Reverse missile formation. You'll see a lot of experiments on it. Not only this, if I get a time tomorrow, I'll show you that video. You will see the missiles are formed, right? You'll see one guy bringing a glass rod, putting it in water, and you'll see all the missiles will start moving away. Why it happens? Because he's bringing the polar part in it. So they'll start moving away from the polar part, non-polar part, move away from polar part. You can check it. This is almost, how sanitizer works on your hand. It is almost similar to that, right? Now let's end this question. For which process RMC is used? I need to check that, Advait. I read it way back. Application part, I don't remember, but there's something called RMC. Let me end it. Yes. So a missile during, most of you have answered. Let me show you the results in case you want. Right. So most of you have answered B actually. Let us see how it is B or A or C or D. A missile formation during cleansing of action of soap is a discrete particle of soap. Obviously wrong. It is not separated particles of soap. It is wrong. Right. A discrete particle of dust. It is also wrong. Dust is not present in discrete units, separate units. An aggregated particle of dust and water. No. It is aggregated particle of dust and soap. There is a dust, dirt, and there is a soap. It is an aggregation between dirt and soap. So aggregated particles of soap and dirt. It's a very good question, which you can answer only if you remember this image. You should remember this image while answering this question. If you remember this image, then you can easily answer it. Correct? I hope it is clear. Any doubt in this, anyone? Yes, students. Is there any doubt in this question, anyone? Very good. So I think it's clear to most of you, right? So now there is a one good question here. I'll give you this as homework. Tomorrow I'll discuss its solution. You try it out. We'll discuss its solution in tomorrow's class. It's a good one. If you know the mole concept, you can answer it very easily. Okay, it will just check your mole concept knowledge. That's all. Right? So you can take it as a homework. We'll discuss its solutions tomorrow. It's not that tough. It just requires mole concept to solve. Right? Sanitizer dries away because they contains alcohol with low boiling point. That's the reason sanitizer dry away. How the sanitizer works is, this is what I remember. I can explain a bit. Most of your virus, and I may be wrong, I'm talking about bio. Most of your virus and your bacteria, right? They have a membrane, most likely, right? This is how I feel it works. They have a membrane, correct? So when you add soap in it, the hydrophobic part of the soap attracts this membrane part, due to which their membrane breaks. That is how these gets destroyed, right? So you must have observed sanitizer kills the germs on your hands only. It does not throw away your germs from your hand, correct? So this is how it works. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. There's a protein coat. There's a non-polar surface of the bacteria and virus, whatever you say, that is attracted by the soap, hydrophobic part, so that this protein coat or this wall breaks away, right? So that it breaks away and your germs are killed. That's how it works. This is what I remember. Soap is better than sanitizer. That you can say. You can say that. Yes, Pritesh, it may happen. It is not same with every case. Most of the cases we are talking about. You must have seen your sanitizer is not 100% efficient. It is efficient 90%. So that's the reason. Right? All right. So Rathe, does sanitizer kills virus and just runs the virus? I didn't get your point, Rathe. वैसे there is no particular type of virus which is killed by sanitizer, right? It just kills germs and some virus. You can't say that all the viruses are killed by sanitizer. So this is just kill them on your surface. And if you say your sanitizer kills 100% of the bacteria and germs, it is wrong. There are many germs. Most of the germs are killed, but most of the viruses are not, because viruses are always new. There are always new viruses which might come up. So you need to keep modifying your sanitizers for that. So one sanitizer will kill everything. That's not possible. Okay? So let's move ahead with our next topic, that is preparation of colloids. Let us move ahead with our next topic, that is preparation of colloids. Yes, any doubt, anyone in cleansing action of soap, you can ask. We'll move ahead. If there is any doubt in previous any topic, please ask. We'll move ahead. At the time, why non-polar tail is not attracted to the glass rod? Yes. So guys, so now preparation of colloids. So let's move ahead with time. Just a minute. Give me 1 minute, guys. Yes. So I was talking about preparation of colloids, right? Let's move ahead then. Smita, just the cation and anion part is different in soaps and detergents. The cation and anion part is different in soaps and detergents. The basic structure is same, Smita. Right. Let's see the preparation of colloids. There are three methods for the preparation of colloids that we are going to discuss today. What are those? First is chemical methods. The next one is electrical disintegration, or the name of the method is Briggs arc method. The third one and the most important one is peptidization. This is the most important one. Peptidization. Right. So how does this work? Let us see. Chemical methods mein what all methods you need to learn. So see, chemical method mein there are four ways of preparing colloids. One is double decomposition, oxidation reactions, reduction reaction, hydrolysis. What you need to do from your side is you need to remember one example of all of them. Yes, this is the last slide. You need to remember the one example of all of them. Right? You will not get question ki, explain what is chemical methods of this. You should remember one example of all of them. That is sufficient enough. Right? Now, let us see the double decomposition method first. We'll see the example of double decomposition method. So you can see, you must have seen the double decomposition reactions in the class 10th. Displacement reaction, double decomposition reaction. So based on that only. Right? So the first one is double decomposition. So double decomposition, how it takes place. Right? Rathe's screen is moving, beta. Rathe's screen is moving. It's not stuck. So let's see what is double decomposition. It's a chemical chain in which two compounds in a solution react to form a new compound by mutual exchange of, radicals are also known as ions. You must have done the test in labs, cations and anions. They are called acidic and basic radicals. Correct? So these radicals, you should also understand they're nothing but they're ions. Okay? So when two compounds in a solution react with each other to form a new compound by the exchange of ions is known as double decomposition method. Example, if you take arsenic oxide, treat it with H2S, right? So double decomposition take place. Matlab this will also break, this will also break. So arsenic will exchange its anion oxide with sulfide. So instead of oxide, sulfide will come, and instead of sulfide, oxide will come. So what will you get? Hydrogen will combine with oxygen to form H2O. Arsenic will combine with sulfur to form arsenic sulfide. And the arsenic sulfide which you get here, is in colloidal range. Can you quickly tell me what is the colloidal range? Anybody who remember? What is the colloidal range? If you remember, what is the colloidal range? Okay, people have different answers. Yes, Gagan, I agree with you. 1 nanometer, 2000 nanometer. So what we are saying here is the particles which you will get, arsenic sulfide particles which you will get, will be in the range of 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. Right? So this is pretty easy. For those who did not understood the reaction, I'll explain. So first you can split the charges also if you don't understand this. Cross multiply and find your charge. So arsenic will be +3, oxygen is -2, cross multiply, hydrogen will be +1, sulfide will be -2. So S -2 will combine with As +3 and cross multiply the charge, you'll get As2 S3. That is As2 S3. You'll get this. Right? And H plus will combine with O -2 to form water. Yes. Is this part clear to everyone? There is nothing to understand in this. This is just an example and reaction which you need to remember. Right? So I hope it is clear. Right. So let's move to the next method of chemical method, that is oxidation reaction. So obviously, if you prepare colloid by oxidation reaction, then it is called oxidation method. So oxidation is gaining of oxygen or loss of electrons. Both the definitions are correct. Oxygen is, for many of you, you must have heard this word, oil rig. That is, oxidation is loss of electron, reduction is gain of electron. Correct? So in terms of electron, oxidation is loss of electron. In terms of oxygen, it is gain of oxygen, or you can also say Removal of hydrogen is also oxidation. Removal of hydrogen is also your oxidation. Okay? Example is in front of you. If you take H2S, and react it with sulfur dioxide, what are you going to get? See carefully. वैसे you will study in P block that SO2 is a very good reducing agent also. You'll see that in P block properties. So H2 will combine with oxygen to form H2O, correct? And sulfur will combine with this sulfur only, and you'll get sulfur particles in colloidal range. So you'll get a colloidal soul of sulfur. So sulfur particles which you get here will be in colloidal range. Sulfur particles here will be in colloidal range. Now, important thing to note here is sulfur will not be soluble in water. If sulfur was soluble in water, you'll not get colloid, you'll get a solution, right? So sulfur here is not completely soluble in water, so you get a colloidal soul in the colloidal range of 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. This is another method of preparation of colloids, right? So I hope it is also clear. You can do the balancing part later. Right? So you can see how oxidation takes place here. You can see that also. See here, this does not have any oxygen. You're adding oxygen to it. Oxygen is added. You're adding oxygen to it. Since you're adding oxygen, it is called addition of oxygen, so oxidation reaction. Okay? And sulfur dioxide is acting as a reducing agent here. You're removing oxygen here. Okay? Sulfur is reduced. Yes, it's a type of redox reaction only. But you should understand there has been an oxidation reaction taking place here. Right? So you should see here, sulfur, you go by oxidation state. Sulfur here is -2. So sulfur is going from -2 to 0, oxidation state. So -2 to 0 is oxidation. Here sulfur is +4. From +4 it is going 0. So sulfur is getting oxidized as well as reduced, right? But you can consider it in both the cases. That is fine. But usually textbooks refer it as oxidation of H2S to sulfur. It is referred as oxidation of sulfide to sulfur, right? All right, so I hope you have taken the example. Previous slide was this one, Aniruddha. Aniruddha, this was the previous slide. This is the current slide. It's a type of disproportionation reaction only, Pritish, where sulfur is, but no, Pritish, you cannot say that. Because same sulfur is not getting oxidized and reduced, Pritish. It is not a disproportionation reaction. Because sulfur is in different compounds, no? It is not a disproportionation reaction. When same element get oxidized as well as reduced, then you say it is a disproportionation reaction. It's a type of redox reaction. You can say it as a redox reaction. Okay? Yes, Chetna, it is a redox reaction. Let's move to the next third method, reduction. Gaining of hydrogen or gain of electron is reduction. You can see here, gold in oxidation state is +3 here, right? You can cross multiply the charges. You'll get gold oxidation state is +3. Tin is +2. So tin is going from +2 to +4, right? And gold is going from +3 to 0. So what is happening to gold? Gold is going from +3 to 0. Gold is undergoing reduction. So the gold soul which you are getting here is obtained by which reaction? Reduction. Correct? So therefore you say reduction of AuCl3 to Au will give you a gold soul. Reduction of AuCl3, Au +3 to Au0 will give you a gold soul. Similarly, oxidation of S-2 to sulfur 0 will give you a sulfur soul. Right? So I hope it is clear. You are talking with respect to what you are oxidizing, what you are reducing. We are not trying to say it is an example of reduction reaction. We are trying to say the colloid has been prepared by which reaction? reduction reaction. In this reaction, there is no colloid formation. This is oxidation. But in this oxidation reaction, there is no colloid formation. The colloid is formed in this reduction part of the reaction. Right? So I hope that clears your doubts, sir, why we are calling it oxidation and reduction. We are not calling it oxidation and reduction reaction. We are saying the colloid is obtained by oxidation and reduction reaction. There is a difference in the two statements. Right? Yes, Ravi Kiran. Previous one was comproportionation reaction, but you can say it as a redox reaction also. It's fine. Yeah. Any doubt in these three methods? Whatever. Last is hydrolysis. This is the important one. Any doubt, anyone? Yes, guys. If there is any doubt, please quickly ask. Right. Veerbhadra. Yes, Veerbhadra. Correct, Veerbhadra. We have taken AuCl3 example only. Right. So the next method is, which you need to learn, is hydrolysis. Hydrolysis, obviously all of you know, the reaction or the breaking of some salt in the presence of water is known as hydrolysis. Hydrolysis, that means cleavage of bond in the presence of water. Right. Now, if you see this, FeCl3, if you hydrolyze it, so Fe is +3, water contains H plus and OH minus ion. So Fe3 plus will combine with OH minus. Fe3 plus will combine with OH minus, and what will you get? You'll get FeOH whole thrice. So this ferric hydroxide you'll get. This ferric hydroxide is a red color colloidal sol. Ferric hydroxide is a red color colloidal sol. I don't know whether you have done it or not. It is there in your group 3 cations. Right? It is there in your group 3 cations, Fe3 plus, Cr3 plus, and Al3 plus in your salt analysis. Okay? It is there in your salt analysis. Okay? Group 3 cation. So you'll get red color ferric hydroxide particles, and they will be in which range? They will be in colloidal range. That is 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer. Right? So I hope that part is clear. This is nothing to remember in this. And that H plus here of water will react with Cl minus to form HCl. Nothing much to worry about. Ferrous is a green sol. Yes, Fe2 plus is mostly, Fe2 plus compounds are green. Most of them. Veerbhadra. Most of the Fe2 plus compounds are green. Most. Now we are coming to our next method of preparation. Chemical methods are over. Now we are coming to the second method of preparation, that is electrical disintegration, or you can also say Biggs arc method. Right? So see the diagram. It's a diagram from the textbook itself. Right? I have shadowed the reaction here. There was some reaction. I have snipped it from textbook. So there was some reaction here. I have snipped it out. So let's see what it is and how it takes place. So you can read the points written over here. I'll explain you the principle involved here. So what you do generally is you take a beaker, you keep, colloids contains two components. What are the components of colloids? What are the components of colloids? I saw that, Nikhil, very good. What are the components of colloids? Disperse phase and dispersion medium, very good. So in a beaker, you will take your dispersion medium. It can be water, alcohol, whatever. It can be anything. You have taken your dispersion medium. You have kept an ice bath around it. It contains a lot of ice, right? Then there is a conductors here from which you will heat it out. Basically, there is a stand. There is a stand to make the beaker stand here. So this beaker is standing on these two poles, and this is contained in a beaker containing ice. Okay? Now what you do, you put two metal electrodes here. Right? Two metal electrodes here. You connect it to the external terminal of the battery. This is connected to positive terminal of the battery, and this is connected to negative terminal of the battery. Then you pass large amount of current from it. So what happens when you pass large amount of current through it? What happens when you pass large amount of current through it? Anyone? What happens when you pass large amount of current through a metal? What will happen? Lot of current, like very high current. Hydrolysis is how it will happen. When you pass through a metal, if you supply lot of heat, sorry, I said wrong. If you supply lot of current through a metal, what will happen? Yes, Vidya is right. So it will get heated up. You must have studied that current has a heating effect. H is equals to I square RT. Correct? So when you pass lot of heat through a metal conductor, lot of current through a metal conductor, lot of heat will be generated. And lot of heat which is generated here, will do what? It will melt your electrodes. Correct? It will melt your electrodes. And when your electrodes will melt, they will mix with your dispersion medium here. Right? So now your dispersion medium and your metal which you have taken will be in molten form. Right? It is in molten form. So it is molten form contains metal electrodes in dispersion medium. Now this metal electrode will act as your dispersed phase. So when you have kept ice bath around it, this molten form will solidify. Correct? Due to cooling, this molten form will solidify. And when it solidify, you will get a colloidal particles, colloidal solution, where dispersion medium will be this. Dispersion medium will be solution. What will be dispersed phase? Dispersed phase will be your metal electrodes. Dispersed phase will be your metal electrodes. Okay? Now, ice bath cannot act as dispersion medium, no, Kishore? These metals are present in this beaker, not in this beaker. How will these metals interact with water? There's a beaker in front of them, na? This metal, molten metal, how can it go to the ice bath? They are separated by this beaker. Okay? Now, so you got a colloidal solution here, right? Then the ice will melt. Yes, ice will melt slowly. You keep putting new ice. So electric, let me read it out. Electric arc is struck between two electrodes of the metal immersed in dispersion medium. The intense heat produced evaporates the metal. Metal will get heated up. The vapor of the metal can be converted into the colloidal soul by condensation with ice bath. So the vapors of the metal coming out will be condensed and mixed with dispersion medium to form a colloidal solution, right? Now there is a limitation to it. What is the limitation to it? What is the limitation to it? What is the limitation to this method? You are converting your metal electrode into colloidal solution. That is the limitation. That means it is used only for precious colloidal solution like gold, platinum. If you want to make colloidal solution of gold, platinum, silver, then you use this. Is that clear? Then you use this. Otherwise, you go by normal methods, right? Because you will get very pure colloids here. That's the good part about it. Okay? We should replace the electrodes only. Yes. Is there any other doubt? Anyone here? Is this method clear to everyone? How the colloidal solutions are prepared in Briggs arc method? Yes. So I got few yeses. Good. Let's move to the next method. Before we go to the next method, let's do a question on it. Colloidal solution or colloid of which one of the following can be prepared by electrical dispersion method as well as reduction method. So which of the following colloids can be prepared by Briggs arc method as well as reduction method? Right? So I think I have already discussed it before only. So you can now expect what kind of question you can expect in exam. I hope now you understand what kind of question you should expect in exam. So you can start voting quickly. I think most of you are getting it right. Very good. You have another 10 seconds to lock it out. After that, KBC show will be over. You will lose the hot seat. So I am ending it out on a count of 3, 2, 1, now. Chalo. Yeah, most of you are right. It is the gold soul which you can prepare. Just now I told you can prepare precious metals like gold by Briggs-Arc method. And you had also seen you prepared gold by reduction of AuCl3 to Au. Right? So you can prepare gold soul because gold is precious metal. So Briggs-Arc method can be used. It can also be prepared by reduction of AuCl3 to Au. We had seen this also. So I hope this part is also clear. The correct answer, as answered by many of you, it is D. I hope it is clear. Now the last method is the most important one. That is the peptization. Let us see how peptization takes place. All of you can look at the definition of peptization. It's a very weird definition. Before I go to the definition, can you tell me a similar resembling word which you have ever heard? Just similar to peptization, have you ever heard a similar word to it? Have you ever heard a word similar to this? If there is any word which you have heard similar to this, yes, precipitation, right? So what is the difference between precipitation? So let us see what are the two processes. See carefully. If you convert colloidal particles into precipitate, this is an easy way of remembering it. If you convert your colloidal particles into precipitate, the process is called precipitation or coagulation. We'll study it tomorrow's class. Coagulation, right? But when you convert your PPT to colloidal particles, the reverse process is known as peptization. The reverse process is known as peptization. So conversion of colloidal particles to precipitate is known as precipitation, whereas the conversion of precipitate to colloidal particles is known as peptization. Right? Is that clear, everyone? Peptide is a different thing, Vedant. Peptide is a bond in proteins. So peptization is a process of converting a precipitate into colloidal particles, important, by shaking it with dispersion medium in the presence of electrolyte. This is very important. So if you want to form a colloidal solution from precipitate, take your dispersion medium, put your precipitate in dispersion medium in a beaker, add some electrolyte to it and shake it. After shaking, you'll get a colloidal particles. Let us see how it works. We should know how it works also. The electrolyte used for this process is called peptizing agent. So electrolyte is very important. It is called peptizing agent because it is causing the peptization. I'll tell you how. The method is generally applied to convert freshly prepared precipitate to colloidal solution. Correct? So any doubt in these 3 points, anyone? Quickly ask, take a screenshot, whatever you want to do. Do it quickly. I'll go to the mechanism of peptization. Is this clear, everyone? Yes, everyone, is this clear? Right. So the next one is mechanism of peptization. All of you can look at it carefully. We'll see one diagram and try to explain it up. Aditya, good morning, beta. Wake up, Aditya. So, mechanism of peptization. So there is a precipitate. You dissolve it in your dispersion medium. You add your electrolyte. 3 components: precipitate, dispersion medium, electrolyte. 3 components. Now see carefully. 3 steps. Precipitate adsorbs on the ions of the electrolyte on its surface. Matlab, there is a precipitate, there is an electrolyte. So some of the ions of the electrolyte will be adsorbed on the surface of the precipitate. There is a precipitate. Some ions of the electrolyte will be sitting on the surface of the precipitate. That is the first step. This causes the development of positive or negative charge on the surface of precipitates. Now, when you study charge on colloid, the reason for the charge on the colloid is adsorption. You will see it tomorrow, day after tomorrow class also. So there is, let's say you took a precipitate, you added some electrolyte to it, A plus B minus. So what will precipitate do? It will absorb A plus ions or B minus ions on its surface, A plus or B minus ions on its surface. So due to which precipitate will become what charge? It will become positively or negatively charged. It will become positively or negatively charged. Now this precipitate breaks up into smaller particles of the size of colloid. So now this ions which is sitting on the surface of precipitate, this ions which are sitting on the surface of precipitate, they will pull out the precipitate. Due to force of attraction, they will pull out the precipitate, due to which this big precipitate will break into small particles. Right? It will break into small particles of colloidal size. So 3 step, let me repeat it again. Precipitate adsorbs one of the ions on its surface, which makes the surface of precipitate charged. Due to the charge, let's say this surface became positively charged. So the negative charge will try to begin on the other side of the surface. So due to which this will get attracted towards positive charge and the precipitate will break into colloidal particles. Okay? So this is the third part. Precipitate breaks into the colloidal particles. Now, if there is any doubt in this slide, guys, please ask quickly. If there is any doubt in this slide, please ask quickly. Repeat 2. I have repeated it, Chetan. If you put positive ions on the surface of precipitate, the precipitate will acquire what charge? Precipitate will become positively charged, due to which the negative charge will be surrounded like a capacitor on the inside layer. So this negative charge will move towards positive charge and the precipitate will break. Baptization means suspension can be converted. You can say that, Pranav, in a way you can say that. Which ion will it absorb on its surface first? That depends upon the precipitate Sakshi. It's not common for everything, right? I'll give you an example and tell you. Just a minute. I'll give you an example. Okay, Pritesh. Now let's move ahead. Now you can see this. This is a very good example. See here. You added what electrolyte? FeCl3 electrolyte. What was your precipitate? FeOH3 was your precipitate. So see the size of the precipitate particles. They have been what charge? Positively charged. How they have got that much charge? So what they must have done, see carefully. This is your FeOH3 precipitate. So usually this is a key point here. It will absorb that ion of the electrolyte which is common to it. So for FeOH3, which ion it will absorb? Common ion. So what is the common ion for FeOH3 in the electrolyte? What is the common ion in the FeOH3? What is the common ion of FeCl3 for FeOH3? Fe3 plus, yes. So there it contains +3 and Cl minus, right? So it contains Fe3 plus and Cl minus. So FeOH3 will preferentially absorb Fe3 plus ions on its surface. It will absorb Fe3 plus ions on its surface, due to which FeOH3 will become what charge? It will become positively charged, right? Due to Fe3 plus ion. So now, due to these positive ions, they will pull the precipitate towards them. And when they pull the precipitate towards outside, the precipitate will break into smaller particles. It will break into smaller particles. And these particles will have size in colloidal range. This particle will have size in colloidal range. Right? Is that clear, everyone? Why common ions only? It's easy to absorb them. And not only that, there is a rule to it. I'll tell you. There is a rule to it. It actually also depends upon your precipitate, right? So it's a rule to it. Matlab, in colloids, there is a rule that colloid should oppositely charge ion they should adsorb. Hardy-Sulzay law. But here you can say the precipitate will prefer the ion of its own. Simple. It will prefer the ion of its own. We can use other electrolytes also. Yes, you can use FeCl2. You can use FeBr3. Or you can also use NaOH. You can use calcium hydroxide. If you use calcium hydroxide, it will adsorb hydroxide ion on its surface, right? So you can use any other electrolyte also. It's not necessary to use one electrolyte only. Any electrolyte having a common ion will be easier to cause the adsorption. So Ravi Kiran, if there is not a common ion, then also peptidation will take place, but little slowly. That's the only difference. You can use magnesium hydroxide also. If there is no common ion, then also peptidation will take place. It will happen slowly. That's the only difference, Danush. Just like common ion effect, you can say that, Veerbhadra. Is that clear, everyone? Aditya, all electrolyte mechanism is same. Yes, mechanism is same for all the electrolytes, whatever electrolyte you use, right? Is this clear, everyone? If there is any doubt regarding this, please ask. Right. If there is any doubt, please quickly ask. I'll go to the question after this. Right. So I don't think so people are having doubt. Yeah, this is your question, guys. So which of the following reaction is not used for the preparation of colloidal solution? Look at it carefully and tell me which reaction will not be used for preparation of colloidal solution. Which of the following reaction will not be used for colloidal solution? Yeah, you can vote it out quickly. Kayuri, check again. Kayuri, check again. Be careful, Kayuri. Yeah. So I'll give you another 10 seconds to vote it. I'll give you 10 seconds to vote it. Will it either anion or cation? It can be both, Sakshi. It does not matter. It can be both, Sakshi. Yeah. So I'm ending it on account of 3, 2, 1 now. Yes, Sanath, I got your answer. Right. So as answered by most of you, the correct answer is C. You have already seen this is hydrolysis. We have already seen this method. This is hydrolysis. And which method was this? This was oxidation. And this was what? Reduction. Correct? So obviously the answer will be C, because the carbon which you get here, carbon is present in powdered form, right? It is not present in colloidal range. So the carbon obtained here is always in powdered form. It is not in colloidal range. Okay? So, and the other point here is, which you can observe, carbon dioxide gas and magnesium, right? They will combine to form magnesium oxide, right? Which is a solid. So magnesium oxide solid can adsorb carbon particles on its surface. So there will be adsorption of the carbon particles taking place. So carbon cannot form a colloidal solution in that case. Okay? It's a black pure solid. It cannot form colloidal solution. Okay? Right. Now we are left with only 2 topics. I'll discuss one of these methods today, right? And remaining methods tomorrow. Purification of colloids, right? Can you give me any example from your body where you can find the application of colloid? Any example in your body where colloidal solutions are present, like where there is a colloid? Very good, Athar. So your blood is also a colloid. Your blood is also a colloid. So if you want to purify your blood, which part of the body purifies your blood? Yes, Adesh, kidney purifies your blood. What happens if your kidneys are not functioning properly? What happens if your kidneys are not functioning properly? The treatment is you go for dialysis. Correct? You go for dialysis. That is our first method we are going to study today. In the purification of properties, we are left with purification properties of colloids. These are the main topics we are left with. Right? We'll try to finish them by tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So we are starting with purification of colloidal solution. We'll discuss one method. Obviously, Aditya. So purification of colloidal solutions. Why is purification necessary? Obviously, blood purification is necessary. Blood is a colloid only. Right? It contains blood, contains minute ions, calcium, phosphate. Right? There are minute ions present in your blood, which forms a colloidal solution. Now, the process used for reducing the amount of impurities, right, is known as purification of colloidal solution. Colloidal solutions are generally contain excessive amount of electrolytes, right, and soluble impurities. So presence of traces of electrolyte is essential for the stability of colloidal solution. Larger presence of electrolyte can do coagulation. What is coagulation? Just now we have studied. It is nothing but precipitation. So what we are saying here is, in a colloidal solution, having small amount of electrolyte is fine. It will increase the stability of colloid. But if you have lot of electrolyte impurities, then it will make your colloids converted into precipitate. That's why it is important to purify your colloids. I hope you remember there were two colloids, lyophilic and lyophobic. Lyophilic and lyophobic. Which of these two were stable? Which lumps are created? Correct. Which of these two were stable? What did we study? Lyophilic were stable because they did not carry charge. Because lyophobic carried charge, they were unstable. Unstable means they can be coagulated, or they can be converted into precipitate. Coagulated means precipitate. How they get converted into precipitate? By the presence of electrolyte. So lot of electrolyte in the solution can cause precipitation of the colloidal solution. All right, so we have to discuss few methods. What are those methods? We will discuss dialysis, electrolysis, ultrafiltration. There is one more we will discuss, that is ultracentrifugation. We'll discuss ultracentrifugation. These four methods we'll discuss for the purification of colloids. We'll start with dialysis tomorrow. I think, yeah, basic principle I can tell you. Dialysis ka, I'll take it again tomorrow. So how it happens, please see this carefully. So you take a pure water outside or pure liquid outside. You take a membrane, or you take, bio students already know it. You take a membrane, or you take a beaker, or you take any bucket whose wall allows only selected particles to pass through. Only selected particles can pass. Only selected particles can pass. So see carefully, this is your sole particle, right? And there are some impurities also, right? There is some impurities also. So what will happen? The impurities will migrate from the dialysis membrane to the water outside, and the pure colloidal particles will be left behind, right? So what we are trying to say here is, the impurities have smaller size, colloidal particles are slightly larger. So impurities can pass through this membrane easily, right? And get converted or get mixed with your water. So all impurities will be collected here. So you can say impurities are also known as crystalloid. You can say crystalloid or impurities. Okay? So impurities will move out and sole particle remain in dialysis bag. Remain in dialysis bag. Right? This is how it works. Right? So principle is, semi-permeable membrane does not allow the colloidal particles to pass through. It allows only what to pass through? Only impurities to pass through. It allows only impurities to pass. Is that clear? This is the types of osmosis only, but the osmosis may solvent molecules move. Here you are moving the ions or crystalloids. Right? This is how it works. We'll take it again tomorrow. We'll finish up our today's quiz. That's on cricket. We'll finish it off and end today's class. Right. You can judge the cricketer here. Who am I? Who am I? So this is our last topic or last quiz. We'll end the class after this. Do not miss tomorrow's class. Tomorrow's class is the most important from competitive point of view. Please do not miss tomorrow's class. Tomorrow's class is very, very, very important. Vijay has answered it correctly. Only Vijay has answered. Atharv has also answered correctly. Yes. Most of you, when I was thinking about this, most of you would have thought MS Dhoni, but it's not wrong. It's not correct. Because MS Dhoni won the World Cup, but it was not India's first ever World Cup. India had won it in 1983. It was Bangladesh's first under-19 World Cup won by Akbar Ali. Under-19, they defeated India. Under-19 World Cup. Right? They defeated India in the finals. India was led by Priyam Garg, who was Indian captain. Very good openers, but despite of that, they lost this year only. Right? That's all for today. Thank you all for joining in. Have a good day ahead. Enjoy your day. Take care. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Thank you all. Yes, Chandan. Yes, thank you, Neerja. Thank you, Bhumika. Thank you, Tarun. Thank you, Pradeep. We'll start doing it, Athar, soon. Yes, Chandan. Water can also move in due to osmotic pressure. Yes, water can, but you should understand, yeah, pure water can move in. No problem, Basan. Pure water can move in. It will not affect your colloidal solution much. No other. Yes, Kishore, whole metal will melt and convert into colloidal solution. Can you please mention all important books for mains and advanced? Yes, Ronish. For mains, if you want to refer only one book for mains, I recommend Cengage JEE Mains ka one book is there. That is sufficient. For advance, you can refer P. Bahadur for physical, or you can refer Cengage also. For organic, you can solve MS Chauhan or Cengage, but inorganic, you refer only NCERT. Read NCERT properly. For inorganic, solve one book. You can solve any one book. Like Vadhwa is a book you can solve. You can solve any book, but read only NCERT for inorganic. Right? Yeah, I remember Chandan. I saw him. He was a bowler. I saw him. Yes. Chalo, let's end this out. Have a good day, guys.